manager at Freshworks for the machine learning team, and our team builds machine learning features specifically for the Freshworks CRM product. The agenda for today's talk is going to be around the challenges we face at Freshworks while building scalable machine learning models and how we address them, the insights around them. So the first three sections are going to be about the prediction system, recommender and generative AI systems. Those will be mainly concentrated around the data science challenges, whereas the last section is going to be engineering challenges. So I'll try my best to clarify any ML terminologies used just so that the non-ML engineers don't feel out of context. Let me know if I have to clarify more. Yeah. Also, throughout the talk, I'll be referring to the customers of Freshworks CRM as either customers or accounts, and their customers as contacts in the CRM. Yeah, the first section is going to be challenges in the prediction system. See, cold start problem is a very, very important challenge in a prediction system. Let me first explain what is a cold start problem, right? So, an account who has a lot of data has enough data to build their own model. So, in such cases, it's great, it works well. That specific model will work very well for that particular account. So, that becomes an account-specific model. Whereas, imagine a customer who is a new user of our CRM, right? They do not have a lot of data. So they cannot have their own data serve as model input. In such cases, what we do is cluster contacts which have similar purchase patterns or accounts which have which belong to the same industry to build mid-level models like cluster level model or an account level model, which is a industry level model. An account which doesn't even have data at the mid-level model, right? Then we fall back to something called a global model where we use data across accounts from different industries to build a fallback global level model. Understandably, a global model will have a lesser accuracy compared to a mid-level model like an industry or a cluster model, which will in turn have lesser accuracy than an account-specific model. So the picture shown here is for our send time optimization system, which predicts what is the optimal time to deliver an email for a particular contact, right? For such systems, the behavior not just varies at an account or a contact level, even at a hourly level for a contact. So we can build model at whatever level we want as long as we have enough data at that level. If not, then we fall back to the next higher level of abstraction by compromising on the accuracy. Yeah, so nudging towards unexplored patterns is another big challenge. This is not just a challenge in prediction system, it is even a challenge in a recommender system. So how do we achieve this is, in a system like send time optimization, if we keep delivering emails at the preferred best optimal time as per historical success rate, right? There could be certain time slots which are actually good and could get good response from the contact, but actually unexplored because it was never attempted in the past. So in such cases, what we do is make sure that at least a small percentage of contacts are delivered at a new unexplored time slot, and we capture the performance in those levels. How we decide which contact has to get this new time slot can be based on some probability, but this kind of an explore-exploit strategy is essential so that no pattern is left unexplored. Yeah, I'll move on to the recommender system challenges, right? Cold start problem is still a problem in a recommender system also, but it has to be handled a little differently in a recommender system because the problem doesn't just exist in the retrieval phase where we are retrieving the recommendations, but also in the ranking phase where we have to rank the products according to the user's personal preference. An account who doesn't have a lot of transaction or order data, we can start with something like most popular products or trending products or even latest arrivals. But in Freshworks, how we try to solve this problem is we build a inductive model like a graph convolution model rather than a transductive model like a matrix factorization model. How it helps is that As soon as a contact comes and places the first order, we are able to recommend products tailor-made for that particular contact from the immediate get-go, right? How the model does that is based on the learnings it gets from other contacts who have purchased these items. In this example, if you see, a contact who has bought a denim pant top and some accessories, the model knows that it probably, the contact would prefer to buy a shirt next, right? So these kind of tailor-made recommendations are possible from the first purchase itself. So this is possible because we went with a inductive model like a graph convolution model. We don't always have a lot of item details stored in CRM, right? For example, in Freshworks, the only reliable piece of information about the item is the product title itself. But we need other details about the product like price, product category and other things in order to recommend the right product to the right contact. Why that is essential is we do not want to recommend a costly product to someone who doesn't really spend a lot in shopping, right? So in Freshworks, how we solve this is by building two separate graph models. The first model is a item graph model, whose output is then fed as input to the second model, which is a user item graph model. So the item graph model's input is item embeddings, which are just sentence embeddings of the product title. Then we train that graph to make sure that two products which belong to the same cart or a basket get the same kind of embeddings and they have edges, and then we get the output embeddings for those items. When we do that, what we end up doing is that the output embeddings will have similar embedding values for similar products. How the model does that is, from the training, it learns that a product which is usually probably bought with a top is probably a denim pant, right? So that kind of learning it applies and then generates the output embedding. The picture here shows the output embeddings, right? Like you can see here, wherever the pointers, I'm not able to point. The denim pants have very similar embeddings, whereas the cargo pants don't really fall very close to them, but they still fall in the same quadrant as pants, which is not the case with the other products. So this item embedding, which is got at the output of the first graph model, is then fed into the user item graph model as input, and then we end up predicting the product which would most probably be preferred by that user. So this compensates for the lack of item details in CRM. Yeah, so suppose one of our customers chooses to add a new product category in their catalog, and we want to recommend those products to specific customers, not random customers, right? How do we get that learning from the day one of launch of that category, right? In such cases, the first table kind of represents imagine if it represents a global graph model, which is capturing the contacts interactions with different product categories. When I say interactions, I mean the purchase of different categories. And then the second table, suppose it is a account level graph model, which captures contacts purchase of products within the product categories within that particular account. In that case, whenever this account introduces a new product like skincare, we know exactly which contact to recommend this product to. How? Because from the global graph model, we know that a contact like Jane, who has bought books and apparel but did not buy electronics, is someone who would prefer skincare. So this kind of a learning is then applied to the account level graph model, where we identify a contact like that who is John, right? And we start recommending skincare to John, right? These kind of nuanced recommendations are possible from graph convolution model. Yeah, I'll move on to generative AI based systems we have and their challenges. Generative AI based systems are conversational in nature, and in Freshworks we have many products, many features which are Gen AI based, and one such system is for helping users create and launch bulk email campaigns through conversation alone. Through conversation they have with the Freddy AI system. Freddy, by the way, is the Freshworks AI mascot, if you guys didn't know. So what happens is, as soon as the marketer enters the goal of a particular campaign, the Freddy system suggests what could be the target contact segments, what should be the tailored content for this campaign, what particular hyper personalized launch time should be used for each of those contacts, right? You can even try it out in our booth, Freshworks booth, these 4 days. These systems are available. So in Freshworks, each of the use cases are built as intent handlers. By intent handlers, I mean intent handlers are systems which are specific to a specific intent, right? Built for a specific intent. The intent could be something like a campaign creation, query to graph, where the user can give a English query and then get a analytical graph as response, right? So these kind of intent handlers are built. This sequence diagram kind of shows the different components in the Freddy AI system, where the micro front end and the dialog manager, the first 2 layers, are common across, and that helps facilitate the conversation between a user and the different intent handlers. If the user has to have a multi-turn conversation, right, maintaining the conversation history is essential. So by design, intent handlers are stateless. So that conversation history is maintained at the dialog manager layer and passed to specific intent handlers as and when required. Also, the Freddy system allows context switch between different intent handlers in the middle of conversation. What I mean by that is, for example, if a user is trying to create a campaign and the Freddy system suggests a target segment, and he realizes that probably this is not the target segment I would want to target, instead I would want to create a specific segment and then launch my campaign targeting those segments, then the intent shifts from campaign creation to segment creation and then back to campaign creation. This is possible because the dialog manager maintains the latest state of each of the intent handlers and passes it to the corresponding intent handlers as and when required, along with the user query. Few more challenges in GenAI systems is that if we have to maintain a GenAI system which is conversational, keeping the response time under control is very, very essential, because of which we had to move away from a single huge prompt which handles anything and everything to stage level prompts which is specifically tailor made for each of those stages, right? So what I mean by that is, one prompt is specifically to identify the goal of a campaign, one to suggest a particular target segment, and so on. Also, we want to keep the number of LLM calls and the number of tokens in a prompt under check so that the cost is under control. In order to achieve that, what we did is we used LangChain during POC phase, where we could quickly check the use case, but when we had to take control of the cost, we had to move away from LangChain and have our own implementation. The Freddy system not just answers the questions asked by the user, it actually supports user to take some action through conversation itself, right? Which means the LLM response has to be consistent enough for us to autofill that in a product API call and make the call directly. So this was very challenging for us to, iteratively tune the prompt to make sure that the output is JSON formatted, the field name and format is consistent to provide consistent input for the API call. Also, the same response from an LLM can be achieved by different prompts of different length, but longer prompts means more cost, right? So in order to take control of that, we built an internal prompt tuner tool which essentially generates different prompts to get a certain response, tries them, and then suggests the prompt with the least number of tokens that could be used. right? So that was very helpful for us to, we use it in all of our GenAI features while building. Yeah, I'll next discuss about the engineering challenges. So ML models inherently have to be retrained periodically so that they don't deviate from the current data trend. And Freshworks CRM has hundreds of thousands of customers, and most of them have their own custom model apart from industry level and global models, right? So training so many models in parallel is a huge feat. So we make sure that the underlying pipeline and infra can auto scale to achieve this. Also, we deploy the trained models in production while it is being actively used for prediction. We use AWS SageMaker where we deploy models, and that has helped us in this regard because there we are just replacing the model in S3, and the model endpoint which is used for prediction doesn't really have to change. Whenever we make an ML prediction, it is essential for the user to align with, for us to align with the user's expectation. What I mean by that is that how much ever we learn patterns and behaviors from historical data, a user who is a sales agent or a marketer has an inherent understanding and insights about his ideal customer profile and his system on who will be his ideal target contact, right? So it is essential for us to get that information from the user itself and use it along with our predictions. The user also likes to have a bit of control and say in the final prediction as well. So the screenshot shown here is a input page for lead scoring system where we score a lead and give a star rating on which lead will convert better, right? So here the user can enter positive and negative signals for his ideal customer profile on who is a better lead. So examples would be an email status as replied for the contact means it's a positive signal. If the job title is head of sales, it's a positive signal. Whereas negative signals could be that phone call duration was just less than 2 minutes or something like that. So it is then our job to make sure that these signals are integrated along with the ML prediction. Also decide how much weight to give to user input versus a ML model feature. It's also important that the scoring factors of a prediction align with the user's expectation as well. By scoring factors, what I mean is the interpretation of a prediction. For a lead scoring system, what it would mean is that why did a particular lead get a certain star rating? What are the factors which contributed for the star rating to be pushed up or down? And why those factors were important based on historical conversion rate, right? For this particular example, if you see that contact seemed to have had a job title as account executive, and account executive title has converted 100% of the time in the past. Similarly, for a negative factor, if because the contact did not have a corporate email, and corporate emails usually don't convert, that is a negative scoring factor. These are shown along with the prediction to gain the user's trust so that he can continue using the feature. We use Sharp and other similar libraries to get the scoring factors. Yeah. Another big challenge for an engineering system is choosing the correct database for the problem, right? It is based on the kind of data we will store, latency we are okay with, cost, and what future requirements will be for this problem. How are we planning to extend this problem further, right? This is an example of a dedupe system where we were identifying duplicates of contacts within the CRM, right? So we went with a graph database. Dedupe, the problem itself is unique because we are not making a prediction for a single contact. Instead, it is for a pair of contacts that we are making a prediction. And what we are essentially predicting is the edge weight. So most relations we go with graph, but there were a few more reasons why we went with the graph database, right? Here the relationship is also both ways. Like if C4 is a duplicate of C6, the same applies to C6 as well, and with the same edge weight also. Also, we were planning on extending this problem to identify related contacts in the future, not just duplicates. And that is possible with a graph DB because all we have to do is traverse the graph with a few hops and then we get the related contacts. Yeah. That's all I had. Thank you.